Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. A couple of weeks ago, the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint, or better known as MyDigital, was launched to much fanfare as the foundation of Malaysia's 10-year transformation into what the government hopes is a regional leader in the digital economy. Joining us tonight to help make sense of this 104-page document, we have Dr. Shawn Tan. He's the principal engineer of Astro, a computer engineering services company based in KL. Good evening, Shawn. I hope I'm pronouncing the name of your company correctly. That's Astro, right?
It's ST actually.
ST, there we go.
My name, Shawn Tan, S and T, so ST.
Oh, there you go, ST. All right, Shawn, thank you for joining us on the show tonight. MyDigital is targeting to produce 500,000 jobs in the digital economy. It's looking to guarantee 100% of households internet access. And it's looking to ensure some 875,000 micro SMEs adopt e-commerce. Those are great headline figures, but I'm wondering whether they make sense to you. Are these figures achievable in the timeline that's been laid out in the blueprint?
Well, based on my personal reading of the document, it reads more as an aspirational document rather than a concrete plan. And it's pretty light on the numbers. Just as an example, I'll pick on one of the cherry-picked points that I did. Pick on in my article, that is on the 80% cloud storage across governments in 2022, right? It says that, but what does it actually mean? 80% of what? Is it 80% of the existing digital documents that will be archived in the cloud? Or is it 80% of all paper documents are going to be digitized and stored in the cloud? Or is this simply 80% of ministries and agencies owning a cloud storage account?
Okay.
Right? So it could be anything. Does someone actually know how much data that the government actually has? So it's not quite clear. And all of this thing has to be done by 2022. So it's just 1 year away. But what is clear is that the government has sent a clear signal of its intention to adopt some sort of hybrid cloud system to manage all of its data. Obviously, there are many considerations to be had. For example, data sovereignty, privacy, security, etc. But this is a good thing if it is done right. Big if there, right? It will drive all ministries and agencies to adopt more cloud services in their processes, and I hope that this ends up making the entire bureaucracy more efficient rather than the other way around.
Shawn, if I could ask you, because in your piece you make reference to the United States digital services, UK government digital and government services as models, but it seems to me that these are essentially about making government digital. Is this digital plan really about the transformation of government rather than the larger economy and enabling the digitization of our economy? Which is it?
I think that this point was made most clear even back in the 90s when we had our Vision 2020 wawasan 2020 with the 7 MSC flagship applications, with one of it, the first one being e-government. And even then it was clear that in order to digitize the country or to make the whole country electronic capable, you've got to first digitize the government. The government plays the major role here because practically everything in Malaysia has got to deal with the government. So there's no point being highly digitized e-commerce system or whatever, but then your back-end payments and taxes and whatever still needs to be done on paper. So it actually comes together. You've got to digitize the government first, and then the rest of the country can also be digitized.
Shawn, you mentioned digital initiatives going back into the 1990s. So we've had all these various digital initiatives over the decades, some varying success with each initiative. What do you think is different about MyDigital? Do you think MyDigital is going to be any different from all the other digital initiatives we've seen in the past?
So personally, I am a little saddened whenever I think of this, because we have largely squandered our decades-long lead as compared to our neighbors. For example, we were one of the first countries in the world to introduce the MyCard as an electronic identity. When it was first introduced, there were so many applications that were planned for it. It was supposed to be the one card to rule them all. However, only a handful of applications were ever developed for it, many with little usage. So instead of becoming a true electronic identity, instead it turned into a plastic identity. And we still had to carry a separate driver's license in our pocket. Now, Estonia, who introduced theirs after us, have shown the rest of the world how to do it right. Today, they can use their national identity card to access all sorts of government services, public transport, healthcare, banking, signing contracts, and even voting in parliamentary elections online. Everything. Now, the MyDigital Blueprint has two initiatives: end-to-end use of digital signatures and a national digital identity. Our MyCard already had the technology capability to do this since the 1990s, but it's not been done. So I feel that MyDigital can succeed if and only if there is a will to do what is necessary to ensure its success.
Shawn,
and as a Malaysian, I will certainly pray for its success.
Shawn, I don't know about the power of prayer, but I do want to ask you about the chatter. There's a lot of chatter around this initiative, and some of it is landing on the question of a change management officer or the location. So we know that MAMPU, the Malaysian Administrative Modernization and Management Planning Unit, is going to be the locus for this. But a lot of people are talking about who is going to lead this. And so is this going to be, and I wanted your take on this, because a lot of people say, oh, what are the criterion? What qualities should this person have? And they reach for pop culture icons, Nick Furious. I don't know. You know, it's quite a bewildering. Is that really where it's at? Do we need a chief digital officer who's going to be like this superhero to bring everything together?
Well, I think that question is a little bit above my pay grade. but okay, since you've raised it, I think it's not so much. Of course, it's more than just a single person; it's an entire team. But being Malaysian, and we know how the way the government works in Malaysia, of course, having the right person at the top will actually help facilitate the change. Typically, of course, in our government, our government is led by civil servants, public administrators, and they do a really good job at what they do. However, if we want to see a proper digital transformation being done, I feel that we need someone with the requisite technological as well as industry background and experience in order to know how best to get things done.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you saying that we need more technologists in the implementation of this blueprint? Do we not have enough currently in the administration?
That is essentially what I'm trying to lead into for the question about the implementation.
Right.
Yeah, from the blueprint, right? So we already know that MAMPU is going to be the central agency, right, to coordinate and to advise the digital transformation across the entire government, right? So this is the model that the UK GDS unit uses, like you mentioned earlier, Sharaad. It is a good start. However, instead of merely coordinating and or serving as an advisory role to other ministries and agencies, I would like to see them take ownership and deliver the necessary. In other words, I want to see them shipping code and delivering services. So for this, I would prefer to see them adopt the US Digital Services model, where the USDS is made up of technologists from diverse backgrounds, working across the government to transform critical services for the people. So they adopt a tour of service model where they hire technical talent who serve a tour by writing code and delivering actual projects to the government. Doing so is also in line with an additional initiative in the blueprint, which is to develop in-house technical talent. The current practice of the government is to outsource IT projects to third parties who unfortunately have no skin in the game. And this model has already proven to be lacking for the last few decades. And I'm reminded that someone once said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a result. And we, Malaysia, luckily, we are blessed with many talented technologists and engineers in our country who have the passion to solve everyday problems. Unfortunately, the government is often saddled with providing services which the private sector does not want to do because it is not profitable. Example, rural broadband. Right? So although all of these services are actually important, they are not going to be built by the private sector. And so we've got to bring all these people into the government and use their talent, tap their talent, use their potential to actually realize the transformation that we want to see. So by giving Mampu the mandate to not only set specifications and standards, but to actually build and ship code, our chances of seeing a fundamentally sound and coordinated transformation process is higher. And I know that we have the necessary talent to do it.
Shawn, that's really wonderful sentiment, the optimism you have for the country. I wonder about this other thing that politicians tend to do, which is they sell policy on the basis of, say, job creation. So they have that 500,000 jobs created, and we talk about SMEs because that's the bulk of the spine of the Malaysian economy being transformed as well. But we know that with SMEs in particular, we've had a hard time dealing with transformation. So where do you think all this is really going to happen? Can bureaucrats lead this the way in terms of the transforming of the larger economy and job creation?
That's where I was hinting to in my last two answers, which is number one, we should not be led by a bureaucrat. We should be led by someone who really knows how to get these things done, who has the technical know-how to know step by step the process of getting this transformation done, including the technical technologies that we want to deploy, as well as how the people can interact with the services, or even exploit the services, or even to roll out the services to the people easily. With the right, I've always believed in this. That is, there is a right technical solution to every problem. So if the problem is SMEs having a difficult time digitalizing because for some reason they may lack the funds to do so, or they may lack the technology to do so, or they may lack the know-how to do so, these can be addressed with the right application of technology. For the government, being the government, is able to, for example, roll out, let's say, standardized applications that anyone can easily use being the key point here. So it has to be built well with the proper user experience and stuff like that. And since it's government, built by the government, paid for by the taxpayers, it could be rolled out for free, for example, to the SME. So they don't really need to spend a lot of money to like integrate their business processes with the government. So, and the government benefits too, because, for example, taxation. I mean, the information, all the sales and purchases, receipts and everything can be directly fed into the government live, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So it's something that's doable if we have the right direction, and we certainly have the right people in the country. But of course, we will need to see them placed at the proper places so that they can effect change.
Well, it's all in the execution, isn't it? Shawn, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. We appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a quick break here on Consider This, but we will be back with more on this topic, so stay tuned.
rang undang-undang ataupun cadangan RUU berhubung gangguan seks masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face mask, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Fokus kita sekarang adalah gelombang ketiga. Elakkan 3S, iaitu kawasan yang sesak, sempit dan juga bersembang pada jarak yang dekat. Berdisiplinlah kerana virus ini tidak mengira darjat, umur mahupun latar belakang anda. Tiada masa untuk kita berlengah lagi.
Kita sekarang telah memasuki gelombang ketiga COVID-19. Setiap langkah pencegahan perlu diamalkan dengan penuh tanggungjawab dan disiplin. Kita mampu meratakan lengkung pandemik ini. Semuanya.
Thanks so much for staying with us on Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. Let's continue our discussion about the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint, or better known as MyDigital. Technologist Dinesh Nair joins us on the show now. Dinesh, good evening. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Now, let's begin the conversation with your initial thoughts about this MyDigital Blueprint. I mean, is this going to be the game changer for Malaysia's digital transformation that it's touted to be?
Hello, Melissa. Sure. Thank you for having me on the show, and good evening. I'll jump right into it. I think my initial reading of the entire MyDigital Blueprint is it is targeted more at digital transformation of government machinery itself. I mean, even though it's supposed to look at three sectors, which is the rakyat and society, business and industry, and obviously government itself, but I think a lot of the initiatives in the 6 thrust and 22 strategic areas and 48 initiatives, a lot of the initiatives were actually targeted at the machinery of government in terms of delivery of government services or payment to government services, or even cybersecurity. You're talking more of government services itself. So what I fail to see in this digital blueprint is how it actually affects the rest of the country, the nation as a whole, outside of government. And that actually did not come up to me very clearly in the 104 or so pages of that blueprint. It did include other entities like private sector. It didn't include rakyat. It didn't include things, but the role these entities play in that blueprint and what initiatives are actually going to be executed to fulfill these needs just wasn't clear for me.
Dinesh, one of the things that policymakers and politicians in articulating these policies need to do is they have to sell it to the rakyat. So if you don't say there's a purpose, there's a benefit for the ordinary citizen, maybe it's harder sell. But having said that, I mean, Shawn, who we spoke to just now, said that it's the nature of Malaysia itself, that without first transforming government, you won't have this knock-on effect with larger society, with the SMEs that are supposed to be impacted as well. Do you agree with that?
I don't fully agree with it. I also don't disagree with it. I'm going to take a slightly central line and explain what I mean by this. I think you can actually have a number of these initiatives or programs happening in parallel or simultaneously, if you will, affecting all parts of it. I mean, I go back to when we first came up with an MSc idea in 1996. Right, it was a grand plan on transforming Malaysia, bringing us into the ICT world, the world of the internet, things like that. And there were very, very clear initiatives, at least through the different flagships for these different areas. You could actually point to these flagships and say, this was about government transformation, this was about healthcare, this was about e-commerce, and so on and so forth, all these different areas. So the digital blueprint does have goals, right? It's got goals about getting a online device into every student's hands. It's got goals about getting a number of SMEs. I think 900,000 of them or something. I can't get the numbers right, but of them online. It's got goals about rising Malaysian global indexes, whether it's the WEF index or the ICT index. It's got goals about raising productivity by 30%, if I remember correctly. These are nice goals. I just fail to see how we're going to get there.
Dinesh, you mentioned the 1996 initiative. I mean, Shawn pointed to all the initiatives since the 1990s, and he said, well, you know, we've squandered the decades. I'm wondering whether you agree with that, whether there were missed opportunities in the past decades, that all the various digital initiatives that we've seen since then have not achieved the level of success that we're now targeting to achieve with the MyDigital blueprint.
On that, I absolutely agree with you. And I think we have squandered the opportunity, but we've not fully squandered it as well. I mean, the original MSc did rather well, right? And it carried on progressing step by step until the resignation of Tun Mahathir at that point of time, right? In 2003, if I remember correctly. I think what hurt it was when the Badawi administration came in. Somehow in that administration, ICT as a whole wasn't seen as a priority. It got pushed back to the back burner, right? And the agencies in charge of ICT weren't given enough, quote unquote, love, if you will. And that did set us back, right? And then there were also a number of plans when it tried to be restarted again. And in this case, when I was already in MDEC at that point of time, we actually started working on the Digital Malaysia plan, which was supposed to work hand in hand with the ETP, which was being done with Mandu at that point. But even that fell aside when MDEC switched CEOs, and the new leadership came in, obviously didn't see much in Digital Malaysia, and that died. So we've had multiple starts and stops, right? And I think one of the reasons why that is there is we've never actually had a single agency or ministry which has been in charge to actually oversee digital technologies. Right? We've got KKMM and we've got MCMC, but they're very much focused on telecommunications with a little bit of work in digital technologies. And then we've got MDEC, which is, I don't know, I think floating in the ether right now. But
Dinesh, that's interestingly now, Mampu has been named as that agency that's going to bring all this together. It's tasked with this job. There's also this idea that there's going to be a change management officer to helm it that's going to bring in this, a lot of chatter about who this will be, because I think in the Malaysian public sphere, we are often riveted by individuals rather than processes and structures. How do you see this panning out in terms of leadership and its ability, of a person's ability to lead this transformation?
Well, Mampu has traditionally been, and they still are today, you could call them the IT department of the government machinery, right, across all ministries. I'm sure each ministry has got its own IT department, but Mampu sets that policy and does a lot of things in common across all ministries. And you can actually see that even in the governance structure of MyDigital blueprint. If you look at a lot of the committees are actually led by Mampu or the chief information officers of the respective ministries, which is still there, which amplifies what I said earlier. It seems to be a transformation for government machinery, which is not a bad thing, mind you. I just do not see it getting outside of government into industry or into society as a whole. I don't see Mampu being able to lead that effectively outside of government. Inside of government, they'll do a great job.
Dinesh, can I ask you then, what would you like to have seen in this blueprint? One that perhaps is not just focused on government transformation.
I would have liked to see more initiatives for industry and society, right? And probably a more cohesive leadership structure within the governance segment of that blueprint to make it slightly less government-centric. As it is, if the blueprint delivers on some of the things it said it's going to deliver as it comes to government transformation, it's great. I'm just not so sure it's going to help the industry and society as a whole.
Okay.
What about the timelines that are presented in the delivery of these aspirations? Are they realistic?
Some of them actually are. I mean, I actually like some of the timelines, to be honest. There was one which said government departments are supposed to accept e-payment by 2022. That's 18 months from now. If they actually succeed in doing that, excellent. That's great, right? A lot of the other timelines, I think, are sometimes just throwing a dart on a wall and hoping it sticks, and then an aim to go for, right? So it's nice. It's nice to aim. You may not hit it. Sorry.
Are you referring to the 100% digital savvy civil servants? Is it the word savvy that gets you?
It's just not just digital savvy. There's also another one which says government services will accept e-payment as well by 2022.
Right.
It's
okay.
Right,
well,
let me try to get it. It's right there at the top in one of the goals. Hold on a sec.
You actually 2022.
Yes, all ministries and agencies to provide cashless payment in 2022.
Okay, so that seems to me quite ambitious timeline. I mean, yes, it's 18 months, as you say, but we're also dealing with the pandemic, a health crisis, and the subsequent economic crisis as well. So while we can say that the digital transformation is one of utmost urgency, whether the realities of the limitations of the pandemic is going to be an obstacle to the implementation, execution of this blueprint and its very ambitious timelines. What do you think?
Well, if anything, I think the pandemic is going to make it happen faster, both for necessity and for the very fact that as long as there are going to be SOPs in government offices, which means the number of people you can serve in any given day is going to be a lot lower than what you normally would under the old normal, if you will. So there is an imperative, obviously, to get things, especially like payment services, up online. And we've got a number of e-wallets in the country. We've got our banks doing credit card payments for ages already. I think it's just a matter of will and being able to do it. It can
okay.
be.
So you are optimistic that we might see a real change with this blueprint?
At least in government machinery, I hope we do, yes.
All right. Okay, Dinesh, thank you so much for speaking with us on the show. We appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Melisa. It's good being on the show.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, folks.